If you're anything like us, you think lightsabers are cool. And they really are. They're so iconic, even non-Star Wars fans immediately recognize the glowy laser swords. But lightsabers weren't the only cool weapons Jedi used. Canon and Legends both give us a plethora of different epic weapons powered by kyber crystals and wielded by Force users, and in today's video, we'll be covering the coolest ones, not only what they were, but also how they were used. To give us a better picture, we've consulted one of our subscribers, a talented martial artist with experience in Kobudo, an Okinawan martial art that focuses on the use of weapons. With the help of our expert, we'll be comparing some of these weapons to real-world equivalents to better understand them. Excited? So are we. So let's get into it.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
To get the most boring entry out of the way, we'll briefly talk about some variations on the basic lightsaber. Now, every Jedi constructed their lightsaber in a way that was uniquely suited to their needs, so no two sabers were identical. That said, certain variations were significant and popular enough to become their own thing. The first we'll look at is the curved hilt lightsaber. As you might imagine from the name, this was a lightsaber whose hilt was curved instead of straight, designed in such a way that the curve fit within the palm of the hand. This was most useful for Makashi users, as this hilt design allowed the blade to extend in a straight line following the user's arm. Count Dooku famously used one, as did many other dedicated Makashi users. Another lightsaber variant was the cross-guard lightsaber, like the one Kylo Ren wielded in the sequels. In its essence, it was a lightsaber designed with either metal spurs or emitters on either side of the main blade to form a guard. Unlike what those movies might have you believe, this was once a popular style of blade wielded once again by duelists that preferred Makashi. The additional plasma emitters were used to catch an enemy's blade and twist it out of their grasp while deflecting blows. They functioned similarly to modern sai, which are three-pronged swords commonly used in Kobudo to catch an enemy's sword and trap it to one side while the other weapon attacks. Single sabers weren't the only blades on the table, however. Another iconic Jedi weapon was the double-bladed lightsaber, commonly used by Jedi shadows. In its basic form, this was a longer hilted lightsaber that drew power from two kyber crystals to power twin blades on either end of the hilt. Sometimes, rather than one hilt, the double-bladed saber was made up of two single hilts that could be connected to form one longer one. Another variant was the spinning double-bladed lightsaber the Sith Inquisitors used during the time of the Galactic Empire that could rotate rapidly. No matter which variant we're talking about, they functioned in pretty much the same way. For starters, the twin blades were independent of one another. That meant the user could choose when to activate one or both of them, giving them adaptability and sometimes the element of surprise. Two blades also created additional space around the user, whether that was for attack or defense. Parrying was easier with two blades to rely on, and attacks could be executed quicker and in more directions. In this manner, saber staffs, as they were also called, functioned much like our bow, the traditional wooden staffs you've seen the Ninja Turtles use. Bow are fast-paced weapons best known for rapid, long-reaching attacks that protect the user while attacking. They're best used for jabs and horizontal blocks, and thanks to both hands on the staff, it's easy to spin from defense to offense in a heartbeat. Due to their affinity for quick jabs and parries or sweeping long-range attacks, saber staffs were best suited for users of Shicho or Makashi. On the opposite side, the need for both hands on the center of the hilt meant it was less practical for power-based forms like Jiamso. But enough about the basic lightsaber, let's get on to the more interesting weapons. Similar to the saber staff was the Lightsaber Pike, also known as the Lightsaber Lance. Although they were both staff weapons, the pike was more like a modern spear with a long shaft made of frick, a saber-resistant metal, and a short plasma blade emitted out of one end. A second form used by all Jedi Temple guards during the Clone Wars was even more similar to the double-bladed lightsaber, with a second short blade at the other end of the shaft. As you can imagine, lightsaber pikes were used like modern polearms, such as the Chinese qiang. Their long shafts allowed their wielder to keep their opponent at distance while attacking. As they were most effective at stabbing, pikes also made for rapid-fire attacks since they only needed to be pulled back very slightly to jab forward again. In most cases, this combination of distance and speed kept the enemy dodging out of range until they missed a jab and were impaled. The temple guards weren't the only users though. The Knights of Zakul were famous during the time of the Old Republic for wielding lightsaber pikes. Palpatine's personal guard were also known to carry them from time to time, as did the Imperial Senate Guard. Everyone knows there were specialized, smaller lightsabers called shotos. These shorter blades were designed for beings of smaller stature, like Yoda's species, or for use as an offhand. And it makes sense. Your weapon should be proportionate to your body size. It should come as no surprise that the Jedi had options for those of them that were particularly ginormous, like Gork, a mutated Gamorrean Dark Jedi. Enter the Light Club, otherwise known as the Greatsaber. These rare lightsabers used special focusing crystals and power systems that allowed the giant hilt to emit a blade of up to 3 meters long. Even in our galaxy, great swords have been historically used even by regular-sized people. Using an extremely long blade might seem counterintuitive, but it allows the wielder to perform feints, such as angling the blade down to bait an attack aimed at the head or to cross-body block incoming attacks. Our next weapon is the exact opposite. Where the light club was huge and unwieldy, the Lightfoil was an incredibly light and agile weapon. Originally designed by the Sith, they were as powerful as a lightsaber, but built for speed and flexibility. Lightfoils featured slimmer blades than the average lightsaber, with ornate hilt designs that were each a unique piece of art. Unlike lightsabers, which could be wielded with both hands, Lightfoils were a single-hand weapon. They were especially favored by the Makashi users thanks to the speed with which they could be used. In today's equivalent, we bring you rapiers. These swords are used in modern fencing, which is the martial art Makashi is most similar to. Rapiers are wielded single-handedly, with the user maintaining distance and going for lightning-quick stabs and jabs. Lightfoils did eventually wane in popularity in favor of the Shoto, but nobles in the Tapani sector continued to prefer them. The unique thing about Lightfoils was that artisans created a modern version that, albeit weaker than the original, didn't require the Force to use, opening up this type of weapon to even non-Force users. The same could not be said for this next entry. Lightwhips were a heavily modified lightsaber variant where, instead of forming one straight blade, multiple emitters in the hilt took advantage of its specially modified containment field to create a long, flexible but coherent blade that could reach several meters in length. Traditional lightsabers could also be adapted to have a light whip mode, which permitted the user to switch between whip and blade whenever they wanted. Due to their flexibility, light whips had less cutting power than a traditional lightsaber and also required more care. Users had to be mindful of every centimeter of the plasma whip as they cracked it, since just the slightest contact with their body could cause serious injury. Sometimes, energy or electro whips like the kind used by the slavers on Zygeria were also called by the same name, but these weapons were non-lethal, unlike the light whip's plasma blade that could and would slice your leg off. Given how uncommon they were, light whip users had the element of surprise over their opponent. They also allowed their wielder to attack from much greater range and made parrying very difficult, since they could wrap around the opponent's lightsaber and still slice their face off. At the same time, they were notoriously difficult to use, and the reduced power of their blades meant that they were less efficient in slicing through tougher materials like Durasteel. Light whips also required a lot more space to use, since they had to be swung with considerable momentum to do anything. A modern equivalent would be the 9-chain whip, a Chinese whip traditionally used against swordsmen. The idea was to use the whip to disarm the opponent, then follow through with another weapon. However, users often relied on their body to swing the whip around, which would be a bit unproductive with a light whip. Instead, we can reference fire whips. They're incredibly satisfying to watch and are swung and cracked just like Lightwhips were. One of our personal favourite Lightwhip users was the Sith lady Githany. She was super extra, and the exotic weapon only complemented her extravagant style and personality. And finally, we'll wrap up this list of badass Jedi weapons with what, in our opinion, was the coolest and most epic of them all. May we present to you the Lightsaber Gauntlet. Like the name implies, this weapon was a gauntlet the user wore on their arm that, once activated, emitted one or more lightsaber blades that extended past the user's hand. Some bounty hunters like Cad Bane and Boba Fett were known to use a similar weapon, but only the Jedi's gauntlets used actual plasma blades. Legends shows Plo Koon using one, alongside Irek Ismarin and Uda Khalid. Do we even need to talk about how cool this device was? It was essentially Wolverine claws, but with lightsabers instead of adamantium, and honestly, we can't imagine a more epic crossover than this. Thank you for coming to our Lightsaber TED Talk. Which variant was your favourite? Feel free to let us know in the comments section below. And a massive thank you to our subscriber who helped with this video. Check out his Instagram linked in the description.